You slosh through the sludge of the swamp, not worried that your goat's legs are knee-deep in this slurry of the swamp. And that means that when you stumble upon, or not so much stumble, when you stride into the gob mob, a mob of goblins surrounding a cluster of trees. They've all got pointed sticks in hand. Some of them have swords, rather jagged, unpleasant-looking tools. They're all pointing upwards. There's a school's worth of children hiding up in the branches of the trees. The gob mob are poking at them, trying to lure them down. None of these goblins look terribly hygienic at that. They're smeared with muck. Their skin's already sallow and green in places from their unhealthy diets and lifestyles. They all look like they're having a great deal of fun tormenting these poor children. But one of them wheels around as well as one can when waist deep in swamp water and sees you towering. Ah! This one looks different to the others. An eye patch, a pretty finely tailored cloak as far as goblins go, and a shirt of ring mail where the rest are clad in scraps. She shakes a stick at you, and the stick is adorned with skulls, small skulls of mostly animals, but you think there's some humanoids in there too. Ah! Ah! The gob mob responds to their leaders moaning and crying and sees Miles standing there. Food! Food! Goat legs! And with cries of yee and ha, they run up towards you like a pack of Danny DeVitos.
The day is improving rapidly.
Okay, so to set the scene, we know what the gob mob are doing. They're charging at Miles, all 6 of them.
Only 6?
Yeah, well, there may be more deeper into the swamp. Don't count your goblins before you've cut them down, as the old saying goes. Gustav and Ramonas, you're not too far away, though Gustav, you do have an entourage.
Yes.
Who, yes, when they happen to see the gob mob, some of them start fleeing back in the direction of the city, others try and hide behind you, some actually try and cling to you or climb onto you. They're not small, these are regular-sized humans, but you are bigger. After all, you are a living mass of muscle. And Ramonas, your companion Christabel, she draws her sword in her left hand. She looks unsteady with it, but still she braces for battle. Everyone prepared to fight?
Born ready.
Well, I'm giving the first round, in this case, to Miles. Miles, tell me what you intend to do, and then we'll roll for it.
Excellent. I'm going to pick up the nearest goblin, probably the leader, sorry love, and just swing her another one.
Haha! Okay. Could you go for a close combat and might roll, please?
That's 2. 2 is fine, right?
To pick up a goblin? Pretty much. I mean, I will roll as well. And yes, it's certainly successful. The leader of the gob mob is hoiked up by the relatively expensive cloak and swung about your head. As if she had no weight to her at all, and you're flinging her into the mob, I assume. Okay, well, you've picked her up, and she isn't able to strike back as you do so. So I would like for a simple... In fact, I don't think I need a roll. So you swing. You swing, you throw, and the leader of the gob mob lets out a "Ah!" cry as she crashes into several of her fellows and they splash into the swamp water, leaving only 3 standing right now. Gustav, you see this take place. It looks like child's play to you, but there may be some good killing to be had.
Yes, Ares will be pleased. So I look to my entourage and I bellow, "For Ares!" And I rush the gob mob and try to fell as many of them as I possibly can.
Can you make a, let's go for close combat and stamina roll first, please?
3 successes.
You are able to run despite the fact you have 2 aristocrats clinging to your body. It's an impressive sight as their togas billow behind you and you rush as if they were just parts of your kit. And swinging your axe nobly and violently as you do, now make a close combat and might roll, please.
3 successes.
Oh, okay. So as the goblins poke at you with their small spears, you just neatly cut through them with your axe, through the spears. They are disarmed, and the goblins look at each other, aghast, askance even, as their weapons fall short and are now just simple sticks in their hands. Looking up at you, this beefcake, they swiftly lose their appetite for goat. But they are all disarmed. And Ramonas?
Well, seeing as the situation does seem to be ending in our victory quite soon, I will happily just keep back just a little, watching and giving words of encouragement. Physical violence isn't really my thing.
No, but you can cheer them on. You could even draw a picture of this battle taking place.
Actually, that seems exactly like what the director would think would look cool, so we shall indeed have me draw a picture.
You get your charcoals out and start illustrating Gustav and Miles taking it to the gob mob. Let's go for another culture and dexterity roll, please. See whether you do a little better than stick figures.
I think it's this part of the film where the director thought some comic relief would actually lighten the mood a little. So even though I actually rolled a success, can I choose to fail for a rewrite?
Absolutely. Make the rewrites go up to 4, as you do. And so your illustration is not at all accurate. In fact, Gustav's head looks much too big, which may be a more metaphorically accurate depiction of the champion. And his muscles have less primacy on the page. Miles, you're just finding it very difficult to suffuse goat with man in a believable fashion, and so in the end, just resembles a goat. It's not your best work at all, but Christabel looks over your shoulder, gives an appreciative nod before she charges in too.
I humph a little and screw the parchment up and throw it over my shoulder.
Everything seems to be going reasonably well until the 3 of you hear a eek, eek, eek. It's like a sound of a spring or something creaking, and a splosh after each one. So a eek, splosh, eek, splosh. And that's when you see it. A goblin on what can best be described as a pogo stick, bouncing through the swamp, clearly to keep its legs and cloak out of the water. It's quite a tall device. This one clad like some kind of chieftain. Very much the leader of the pack here. Glowers at the 3 of you, and speaks the words that you may have heard before if you have encountered goblins on your trails through the wilds. Nicky wookie wacky, and tendrils start reaching up through the murky waters and lashing at you and grabbing at you and pulling you toward the murky depths. Could I ask for each of you to make an athletics and dexterity roll, please?
Yes, but as I yank tendrils away from you, I yell, I didn't even feel that, because I want my extra die.
No successes.
1 success.
1 success.
In that case, Ramonas and Miles are able to pull themselves free or skirt around these tendrils as the goblins start finding themselves girded by the appearance of their chief. Gustav, however, you failed. That means we add another rewrite to the pool, back to 5. But you have a choice. You do currently have some cargo. You could deflect that attack and have it grab one of the aristocrats instead. Or if you're feeling noble, you could defend them.
Well, I do believe in nobility, after all. I'm looking for a just cause. Things have not been going entirely to plan so far. But this is where it all changes. I will protect them.
In that case, these tendrils lash themselves to your legs and you feel yourself sinking into the mud, the soft silt below your feet, and now up as far as your thighs. The aristocrats burble and scream. One of them clings to you, wrapping their arms tightly around your neck, making it difficult to breathe, despite the strength of the muscles in that part of your body. The other one uses your back as a vaulting pad, and jumps off of you and onto dry ground, says sorry and thank you and sorry before rushing off into the trees.
I just grunt and I try to keep alive here. That's all I can do.
Well, Miles, you have already taken out 4 of these goblins, although they're now pulling themselves back up, laughing again, feeling like now that their chieftain's here, nothing can fail. The other 3, with their broken off sticks, advance on the now incapacitated Gustav, or at least restrained Gustav, presumably aiming to poke him to death.
Not on my watch. I'm gonna go and tower over my friend / temporary ally of convenience. Snarl down at these goblins and bellow, "Do not try me, I am not a merry person."
Yeah, okay, let's go for command and presence, please.
I'm a wet goat. That's no successes.
So soon did you spend that cinematic, that magical effect, to drop from 6 to 3 rewrites, but now you are back on 6 again. As the goblins all wheel on you, they have recovered their taste for lamb, and they decide they're going to jump at you and try and take you down. Even if you're avoiding the tendrils, the goblins can force you into the water. And as you have failed so completely, that is indeed what they do. Goblins leap on you and start pummeling you. You've got 2 on your legs weighing you down. You have another 2 on your sides and 1 on your back, jumping up and down, trying to make you fall lower and lower. As Gustav struggles with the water and the muck, and Ramonas contemplates whether to start another drawing, Gustav, you see Miles, who tried to intervene to save you, as so few of your companions do, and you've never quite figured out why that is, but it just doesn't come up often. Gustav, at least they're not attacking you. What are you going to do?
Is there any way that I can try to chop at this tentacle or try to get loose?
It's certainly, you still have your axe in hand.
Well, then I shall do just that. I try to chop it off with the same kind of force that I used to heroically chop off the hand earlier.
Close combat and might, please. I can already picture how this takes place, if it's successful.
That is 1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
4 successes, fantastic. In slow motion, you bring your great battle axe down into the murky water and splash. The brown and greens of the moss and the lichen and the water and the scum splash up in a V shape as the axe parts the waters and cuts deeply, finely, cleanly through the tendriculous monster of the swamp. It lets go of your legs, freeing you, giving you mobility. You hear the aristocrat on your back whisper into your ear, "Oh, thank the gods, thank the gods." But that's less important right now than the fact that you have slain some kind of swamp maritime beast that retracts. You notice the goblin chief across the way on his pogo stick look troubled at this. This isn't clearly what he was anticipating. But more important than that, now you are free, and poor Miles is being besieged by this gob mob. Ramonas, if you're to take action, now may be the time.
Oh, part of me was thinking of trying to speak reason to these beasts, but seeing Miles in peril, nay, I cannot allow him to fall now. It would ruin everything we've been trying to teach him. I shall run, and wielding a stick that someone in the prop department just handed me, I will attempt to aid Miles.
It makes for an ungainly sight. This spider-legged sage clambering through the water, the clockwork legs splashing as they go. But Ramonas gainfully leaps into the fray and swings her quarterstaff, which, as you say, you've just received out of nowhere. trying to knock some of these goblins into the water from whence they came. Could I ask for you a very unlikely roll of close combat and might? Remember, you have some cinematics that may be able to help instead. And if you need to spend rewrites to get some automatic successes, that's fine too.
I think we'll be fine. I roll 3 successes.
3 successes! Bop, bop, and bop again, as the lengthy shaft of wood strikes these goblins into the murk, leaving Miles only pinned down by 2 of the gob mob. Unfortunately, these 2 are doing a number on you, Miles. They're biting into your goat legs, hoping to taste something nice and finding only, well, fur and gristle. And so they poke at you with their broken off sticks, very unhappy that this is what their meal amounts to. Still, they've slowed you down. You may be able to deal with both of them yourself, but they've dealt you a superficial injury.
Little monsters. Well, then it is time to have my revenge. Superficial injuries, do they have any effect, or do I just have to wait until they become dramatic?
You have to wait for the time being.
Alright, I'm gonna rip a goblin off me and fling it into the swamp, and then I'm gonna drop on the next one, which might be regrettable. I'm not thinking it through!
Of course not, this is a dramatic fight scene. It's not choreographed at all.
-1. That's -1 successes. You have no idea how many dice I just rolled for that.
Yeah, and these goblins are basically raising you to the health level or lowering it to that'll leave a scar. You're now going to be gaining dice because you have heroic scars, but you're an inch closer to death at that. Unfortunately, yes, as they bite through, blood fills the water. All 3 of you know that this can spell ill tidings, especially in a swamp of beasts such as this. Blood in the water is a good way to attract monsters. You're going to have to finish this fight, and quick. And we deal with the chieftain on the pogo stick next, who's seeing that his mob is far more adept at tormenting children than 3 burly and wise heroes, is pogoing away into the wilderness. Which leaves Gustav. You can maybe return the favour now. Miles is being dragged down and bloody.
Indeed, I will do just that. I will save my friend. And I rush forward with the aristocrat hanging off of me, and I swing my axe.
1 more close combat and might, please. I think we're on 7 rewrites at this point.
No successes.
8 rewrites at this point. This is a comedy of errors, as maybe it's the humidity of the swamp, maybe it's the water level, maybe it's the tendrils at your feet that you never know whether they're going to grab or if they just happen to be reeds, maybe it's the number of the gob mob, you don't know. But what you do know is this battle is not at all going to plan. And this leaves us once again with our sage. Ramonas, now may be a time for a magical effect.
Seeing Miles being dragged into the depths, seeing the dire situation, seeing these goblins fighting, it strikes me. What is the point of all this? This ceaseless, meaningless violence. These thoughts, of course, are spoken in narration so that the audience can hear what I'm thinking. As I go to the goblins, put down my staff and say, "Do you not see? Whether you kill my friend or my friend kills you, all of us will die if the great priest of Hades is allowed his way. Your people and mine. There will be no food for anyone. Can you not see the error of your ways?" And I will spend 2 rewrites on common bond, trying to appeal to the greater nature, mainly of survival, of these last 2 goblins.
Yes, you are attempting to appeal to the goblin proletariat. And, well, at 2 rewrites, it could be pretty damn effective. Let's go for persuasion and manipulation, please. I mean, you have got their attention, regardless, because you just bought this cinematic. Let's see how effective it is.
And to give myself a bit more of a chance, I will say quietly, do you not see? Even the very wise cannot see all ends. To hopefully get another dice.
Yes, quip your way into success. That'll be the name of your autobiography, Quipping Your Way to Success.
3 successes. A 10 and an 8. And a 9, sorry, that is 4 successes.
The goblins put down their teeth, their pointed sticks, their violent bloodlust, as they realise that they have more in common with you than differences. As they realise that they are being used for monstrous purposes, and that yes, indeed, the threat of this left hand of Hades is perhaps greater than the threat of the 3 of you. In fact, if this battle has shown anything, almost certainly greater than the threat of the 3 of you. And the gob mob, having taken their mouthfuls of flesh from Miles's legs, jump off. They do not endeavour to speak or parley with you. Their chieftain has hopped off into freedom, and maybe that's what gets to them as well. They've been abandoned here by their pogo goblin, and they don't like the look of that. They go to their companions, pull them up from the mud. Keeping wary eyes on you, they back off into the wilderness.
Gustav, quick! Help, Miles!
I look to my axe, and then I look to Miles, and then I move up to Miles.
The legs are fine, don't cut them off.
Is there anything I can do?
You can stabilise the bleeding, perhaps. Between the 3 of you, and you don't need to roll for this, you get Miles back up onto drier land, and using some of the aristocrats' fine cloth togas, make some wonderful bandages to staunch the bleeding. Again, you're in a swamp. Not the best place to avoid infection. But thankfully, this is a fantasy movie. Things like that don't happen. So, you with 2 bright white tourniquets around your thighs, Miles, like garters, you are ready to continue on with your journey. There are 2 aristocrats right now that are looking very naked and unhappy about their current position. They stalk off back to the city, covering their shame.
Take the children with you!
They realise as an afterthought that there's still children hiding up in the trees who are now cheering the 3 heroes. Yay! Yay for Gustav! Yay for Ramonas! Yay for the Goat Man!
I suddenly appear behind Miles in classic close-up and say, Miles, are you okay?
And I breathe in deep. I lift up my chin and I announce, I didn't even feel that.
Somehow, I doubt that, but I understand.
No, it hurts. It hurts terribly, Ramonas.
That's what I thought, Miles. It's okay to show weakness. That is where true strength lies. Do you not see that?
No, Ramonas, true strength lies in punching monsters to death.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes words, surely you saw there, can have just as good an effect. And I smile and attempt to give him something to eat at least.
I mean, it's always a good time for a snack, so yes. Yes, that's fine.
As the children climb down from the trees and most of them make their way off with the aristocrats, the oldest among them comes up to the 3 of you. Stops at Gustav, of course. One day I want to be just like you, Gustav.
One day, you can be just like me, I say, and I flex my muscle, and I allow him to touch the muscle.
The child has lost his entire family today, but somehow gripping your bicep makes it all feel better. It's a wonderful cure for grief. You're flexing. And the child nods and smiles and says, I saw Duke McMorrow ride this way. Hours ago. He lost his horse to a massive swamp creature with a single eye in its forehead. he had to let his horse sink in traumatic cinematic fashion in his effort to reach the castle.
A massive beast, you say? That sounds like a worthy foe.
Yes, in the Garden of Statues was where it was. We were with McMorrow. He was trying to lead us out of the city into safety, but when the great beast came upon us, McMorrow had to flee, tried to lure the beast away, and we hid in the trees, and then this gob mob came along and started tormenting us. He was on the way to Castle Thrax for reinforcements.
Castle Thrax. I look to my companions.
Perhaps that is where our fell foe has fled. But tell me, young boy, this being you speak of, could you perhaps be speaking of a Cyclops?
Well, I don't like to reduce a monster to its physical features, but yes, it was giant and had one eye.
Then we must be wary. Wary indeed. Run now, boy, run back home to safety. We will take care of everything from here, won't we, Gustav?
We will. For Ares.
And with that, I will look to wherever this castle is. After all, even though we don't know, the director knows, so surely that's where the next scene will take us.
Well, almost. We do get a shot of Castle Thrax outside the swamp, where it still appears to be night time, despite the fact it is day in the swamp, and it is still stormy above Castle Thrax. A lightning strike illuminates the castle, abandoned and creepy. We saw it last in our prologue, but it is not where our heroes are yet. When we cut back to the heroes, they have traipsed further into the swamp. They have clearly been at it for hours. Now there is only one aristocrat still clinging onto Gustav's back, and Christabel alongside you. Most of the others lost the ghost, as it were, gave up the ghost and decided it's time to return home or make new homes in this inhospitable environment. But just as the child described to you, a garden of statues. You have heard of this place, that once upon a time great priests of old would build or have commissioned huge statues larger than any human to symbolize the gods of Mount Olympus and beyond. This land was overtaken by swamp, lichen, moss, and muck, and now the statues can barely be seen, and for sure this is no garden, this is just another part of the mire. And so, as you enter this section of the swamp, you see the remnants of once great idols, larger than you in every proportion, even Gustav's biceps, but clad in the greenery, the yellows, the browns of this murky environment, long forgotten by civilization. The water here is shallower than elsewhere, but the vegetation is just as thick, and the mosquitoes are just as present.
I look around for threats. Are we alone here?
Very good question. As you look around, studying the statues, the trees, the reeds, seeing whether there's any kind of threat hereabouts, you see the remains of a horse, a regal horse. It's legless, as in the legs have been cut off. And then you see the dripping of... At first you think it may be moisture from a leaf on a tree, but then you realise it's thicker than that. It's heavy, it's red and brown, it's blood. One of those statues, all greys and greens, covered with the scum of a swamp, is chewing on a horse's leg. In its other hand is a blade far too large for any normal folk to wield. It appears this statue has been using it to carve up the horse quite meticulously. And this statue, with its one eye in its forehead, is the size of 4 men stood on each other's shoulders, and almost as wide as the same. He finishes chewing, and throws the horse leg down into the water, splashing all of you with the greasy water.
I recoil in horror and move my legs to take a few steps back, but do I think this being is going to immediately be hostile to us, or is it possible to appease it somehow?
Well, you have heard tales of the Cyclops. Could I ask you to make an Enigmas and Intellect roll, please?
2 successes.
Very good. You have heard tell that the Cyclops is partial to riddles, as so many of the great beasts are.
I look to the others and raise a hand in command, saying, Gustav, Miles, wait a moment, wait.
I stay my axe, having intended to rush forward heroically, but that will come later, I think to myself.
Miles pauses mid-flex.
Tell me why I should not crush the 3 of you like bugs.
Because we are not bugs. We are living beings. Beings with minds. And even though we may be weaker than you, perhaps we may be able to entertain you with our intellect. After all, you are a great being of intellect as well as strength, are you not?
Well, my dad likes to think so. I would settle for a fight with the boldest of you. 1-on-1. That would entertain me, unless you have something else in mind.
What of a riddle instead?
A riddle? Do I look like a sphinx? It would take a great deal for a riddle to amuse me.
Well, how about this? You ask me a riddle first. If I cannot answer it, then you can devour all 3 of us. But if I can answer the riddle, I get to ask you one in return, and if you cannot answer my riddle, then you must let us pass in peace and respect.
The Cyclops frowns at this, blinks, or winks, and scratches his bulbous head with the nastily sharp blade in his hand. It actually draws a trickle of blood, which, given his size, is more like a small stream that runs down past his ear, over his shoulder, and into the swamp.
Could be fun. But you say only 3. I want to eat all 5 of you.
And he points at Christabel and the aristocrat on Gustav's back.
Well then, I suppose 5 it will be.
No, says the aristocrat. I do not sign up for this. This is nonsense. This is foolhardy.
Miles, could you deal with him, please?
Shut up or I'll tell him to eat you first.
Gustav, protect me, Apollo!
And I smile at him, showing my white teeth. I will protect you.
Thank you, my god.
I give Gustav a bit of a sigh, and I say to Miles, sometimes he really doesn't seem to get the gist of what we're trying to do, does he?
I'm honest, I don't get the gist of what we're trying to do. It's right there. We could hit it.
Well, you can do that if I fail. Goodness me. Must I do everything around here?
Hurry up and fail quickly.
A riddle, then. I've thought of one, and if you can solve it, then you pose one for me. What happens, though, if I get your riddle right? Do I get to eat one of you?
I tilt my head back a little. Perhaps you can eat one of us, but you must still fight them fairly.
Well, fair enough. Seems like a transaction, so I like to get the contractual terms of riddles purely defined. Therefore, I ask you a riddle, and if you get it right, you pose me a riddle, and if I get it wrong, you all get off scot-free. Now let's look at the other alternatives. I ask you a riddle, you get it right. You ask me a riddle, I get it right. I can eat one of you after fighting you.
Yes.
And let's look at the other two options. I think it's two, could be three. I ask you a riddle, you get it wrong.
We get to eat all 5 of us.
Well, that seems agreeable to me. Okay, I've thought of one.
Rubs his eye. Picks his teeth.
It's an old classic. I say. My mother-in-law told me my life can be measured in hours. I serve by being devoured. Thin I am quick. Fat I am slow. Wind is my foe. What am I?
The camera zooms in dramatically, as perhaps I should roll.
This would be enigmas and intellect.
I'm doing well on the 10s today. 3 successes.
And do you know the answer?
I do. You speak of a candle.
Oh, flip. Right, well, I'm guessing I will probably get to eat one of you. I happen to be very good at riddles. So, what's yours?
Well, this is one I once heard Athena tell one of her priests. Poor people have it. Rich people need it. And if you eat it, you die. What is it?
Poor people have it. Rich people need it. If you eat it, you die. Disease? No, rich people don't need disease. That wasn't my answer. Flea? No, it's right. Well, rich people don't need. That's the tricky one, isn't it? It's, the thing poor people have that can kill you. There's a lot of things poor people can have that can kill you. But what thing does poor people need?
And he's busy scratching his head. Do you want to give him the chance to answer, or are you going to try sneaking on by?
I'll look to the other two and kind of give them the eyebrow signal of, by all means, begin going.
I think I get it, and I begin trying to sneak away from here.
Is Miles doing the same, or is the lust for battle too great?
My vote to stay and punch a Cyclops is going to be outnumbered anyway. No, I will skirt around it, and I will leave, but I'm coming back.
Okay, I'm not going to make you roll. The Cyclops is so lost in thought, trying to consider what the possible answer could be, that he doesn't notice as the 5 of you slink past through the shallow water.
I smile happily and say to Miles, out of interest, what do you think the answer was?
Now, if I get this right, you're going to pat me on the shoulder and you're going to tell me how intelligent you think I am and how much better wit is than brawn. But if I get it wrong, you're going to say I'm dumber than a Cyclops. So I can't win.
Miles, I would never call you stupid.
The answer is nothing.
You are truly wittier than you appear.
I don't think that was a compliment.
And perhaps there's even some jovial music at this point.
The calm before the storm, as a bit of a trill is played on a flute, some kind of doodly-doodly-dee, as our heroes leave the swamp and approach the ominous Castle Thrax. And as they approach Castle Thrax, it is quite apparent. The drawbridge is up and the portcullis down. The weather has cleared up entirely since we last saw the castle, but a moat surrounds it and the walls are high. How to get into Castle Thrax, where just like Muso there is no sign of life? The 3 of you stand, or with your companions, on the opposite side of the moat, looking up at the tall structure before you, wondering what might be inside and how to get there. The camera pans down from its location, a crane shot, the most expensive shot of the movie, cutting from the castle wall to where the 3 of you are, so that you equally fill the frame.
I wrinkle my nose and look a little bit perplexed for once, saying to Gustav, "Now I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure how we're going to get past this. Any ideas?
Can you construct a siege weapon?
Well, if I had 10 or 20 workers and maybe a week, yes.
Good.
I wrinkle my nose and look to Miles. Do you maybe have something that's a little more timely that we could do?
I was just going to scale the walls.
Christabel,
Yes?
would you be able to help us scale this wall?
With one hand? I could help, says the aristocrat.
How could you help?
I can cheer you on from the ground. I'm not going up there.
I sigh. Miles, do you by any chance have some rope?
Miles, who is clad in fur and bandages and carries no equipment, nonetheless pats at his fur and pats at his back as if he might find a rope there. But alas, he does not.
I sigh very heavily, look to Gustav, and I say, there is one extremely risky thing we could do.
Name it.
Call upon Ares. Call upon his might and his power. Ask him in this moment of time to bless thee, and perhaps he will give thee a great boon, such as, I don't know, to make you as a giant.
Yes, then I could crush the walls. I could bring down the drawbridge. We could get inside. Perhaps Ares might bestow us with that.
And so I will begin on the ground, writing runes and lighting candles and asking Gustav to stand in the middle and invoke the name of Ares, and possibly he can then use the magical effect among giants, if Miles agrees.
Absolutely.
In this bizarre effect that breaks conformity with the rest of the movie, the spell among giants, the magic that is called down from the beseeching of Gustav, the magical skill of Ramonas, the hard-headed, dogged refusal to give in of Miles, our heroes undergo a transformation, powered through stop-motion, rear projection, CGI, and many other VFX techniques. Maybe a little bit of claymation too, I think that would be appropriate. This new form that is bestowed upon each of you, as you grow in scale, in enormity, in danger, only lasts until the end of the scene, but typically, while among giants would give you scale equal to the most powerful foe in the scene, the foe in this case is the castle itself. Are you spending 4 or 5 rewrites on this?
How many do we have in the pool?
8.
Let's go with all 5 then, as perhaps unexpectedly we are blessed so much that we merge together.
That is exactly what you do. In claymation style, the 3 of you form into a great 3-headed godling. There's no good logic for this, just roll with it. As Ares blesses the 3 of you to become his vessel of destruction. As you grow to the same size of the castle, once again lightning strikes, the wind blows, the sun rises and falls rapidly because it sees what's going on and decides better of it. And then smash! With a swing of a giant satyr fist, crash! As a giant spider mechanical leg crashes through a wall, and boom! As an enormous axe cleaves through the castle gate. The 3 of you in one giant form enter Castle Thrax, and in the next scene you are back to normal with no explanation for how that happened. Wreckage behind you tells the tale of godly intervention, the kind of intervention no one would believe, except you have 2 witnesses to this great feat, to this use of the Among Giants magical effect. Christabel sits there on the other side of the moat, her jaw hanging open. Long now has she forgotten the injury to her arm, as she can't believe what she's just seen. And the aristocrat, having utterly lost his mind now, runs back into the swamp in the direction you came, despite the dangers that exist there, because nothing can be worse than the three of you.
Took him a long time to realise that.
Makeup has applied one single bead of sweat to my forehead as I clasp Gustav and Miles by their hand and say, "You see, the gods are with us, although I am afraid we will not be able to do that again."
You know I don't object to that.
Come, let us enter this abyss. Lead the way, Gustav, lead the way.
And I lead the way.
Gustav, you charge into the castle courtyard, where the bailey once stood, and instead you find the castle utterly bare, to your great disappointment as a hero. You need to cut things up with this axe. And instead you find another barren location. You can see a thin crack through the courtyard, where at one point an earthquake must have severed the ground here. But try as you might, you cannot pry it apart with your fingertips, and you feel, Gustav, a sense of despair, as if you have made it all this way, and there is no one here to greet you, a friend or foe.
Was it all for naught? I say aloud. Is this it? No great foe to take down? Nothing?
Just as you ask, your voice travelling into the middle distance and disappearing on the wind, a face appears in a dark flame above the crack in the earth. Fools. One eye is fixed on you, the other rotates wildly. You make your way here to save your duke? He is already among the dead, down here with me, in the kingdom of Hades. I am Darangel the sorcerer, and your heroic deeds will lead to heroic ends. You want the people of Muso, they will come to meet you. And the crack in the earth starts separating, widening, and down from below you hear groans and moans as, clambering toward the surface, you see stop-motion skeletons and zombies advancing on you.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the scenario Chronicles of the Abyss, for they came from the Cyclops' cave. We were again joined by our dear friends Matthew Dawkins and Kat Evans for this series. The music was made by Ager Sonus and Halgrath, and was used with permission from their label Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient for your gaming table. We'd like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon: Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Ludwig Manford, Bob Lange, Julián, Cameron, Ryan F., Xabier, and Daniel for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult Divinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and see you soon, again.